everybody. I'm back. I'm here. I am feeling kind of queer today. Fuck you. Anyways, sorry I've been gone for a long time. That's mainly been because of one person and one person only. Fucking Korvurrum. Alright? He's been kind of Jewish lately. So, you know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. What I was trying to say is that he hasn't been working because he's a... never mind. But what I'm trying to say is that it's not my fault. Go after him. If you want his address, I'll ask for it in the comments and I'll reply to you. Anyways, sorry I haven't uploaded in a long time. Not really my fault. Kind of sick today. We just have a little short story for you guys. As always, Snoop Dogg will be reading it to us because I don't like reading it out loud. I'm sure you guys don't want to listen to a child read it out loud. And as always, lead director of these projects is me. And let's get into it. David, this is after episode 3, in between 3 and 4. This is a little episode reintroducing the series, so let's get into it. Might not talk that much today because I'm sick, so let's do this.
Old Villador stands strong as the refuge of humanity. The evil scourge has been wiped from the earth. This is the return of the Chronicles of Degeneracy. This is the Chronicles of Degeneracy 3.5.
Okay. Let's just do normal speed.
The new regime. Some time back, the world lived free. Billions of people lived on the earth and life had grown to be everywhere. Then the world found itself conquered by a horrible plague of zombies from hell. A man named David had risen to lead them in a campaign against humanity, but his power was uprooted. Cruel and merciless demons seized power over them and laid waste to the human race himself. Only a handful remained. In the final settlement of humanity, Old Villador, there was a giant, horrible battle that eventually led to the triumph of humanity. David, the one who originally led the living dead, fought alongside the humans, and with his leadership and valor, he was able to save humanity. This is what truly happened. However, the knowledge that was being spread was that David led the zombies in evil conquest against humanity the whole time. David was made out to be for the genocide of all of humanity. It was being taught that David had cowardly switched sides at the last minute to defeat the last of the zombies just so that his life may have been spared. David was lauded as a hero immediately following the battle, but within a week of the establishment of the global order, he was the most hated man on earth. The global order is what was formed once the zombie threat had been defeated. Old Villador expanded and, rather than letting new states form, one man known as Eric Sturber united all of Earth.
Oh, fuck no.
He brought all of the former countries of the world together into one empire, the global order. However, soon after the global order was established, Sturber seized more power than any man has any right to hold.
Sounds like a
He
certain
rules as
man
a
that we
cruel
all
and vicious
know.
dictator, suppressing the people with violence. Sturber wanted to crush all possible opposition, and knowing that the people respected David, he thought that David had the power to form a revolt against him.
They do.
So he formed a propaganda campaign to change public opinion of David, and it worked. David was given up by those who were once his supporters and sent to a prison camp in the icy north.
Oh, nah.
Pommy was sent with him. One day, an officer of Sturber's paramilitary force, the Global Suppression Force, or GSF, came to talk to David and Pommy. David stared suspiciously at the daggers on his helmet, the official symbol of the global order. The GSF officer said, "It is by direct order of the commander, Eric Sturber, that all direct enemies to his authority be executed. You and your wife will be moved from this prison camp to an execution camp come next morning." David stared at him in shock and simply breathed out the word, "No." The GSF officer looked puzzled.
Damn.
"Yes, of course you will. You are in no position to question the commander's authority." he said, and he pulled out his assault rifle. David remained unfazed and said, "Kill me now if you want. Sturber will have you killed for not letting my execution be public. I'm dying either way, and I'd love to take your pathetic life along with mine." With that, he moved the barrel directly between his eyes. He said, "Pull the trigger, or are you a coward? Are you not prepared to kill?" The GSF officer looked enraged. "Of course I am prepared to kill. I would do anything for the global order," he screamed. David said, "Then prove it." The GSF officer bellowed, "I will." With that, he smacked David across the face with the barrel of his rifle and aimed the gun at Pummey.
Oh, fuck.
It all happened so fast that David couldn't take it all in. But at the same time, it seemed to happen in slow motion. He saw the officer pull the trigger. He saw the bullet take flight, and he saw it break into his left throat. He saw it escape out the other side. He saw Pummey's blood splatter everywhere. And he saw her fall dead to the ground. David just stared, and the GSF officer looked horrified. He knew his actions would have terrible consequences. He had heard tales of David's depravity and extreme, crippling lust for violence. David turned his gaze to the officer, and with burning hot rage, he grabbed the gun straight from the officer's hand. David kicked the officer to the ground and flipped him over. David fired 3 rounds up his spine so that he couldn't get away. Then he took the officer's knife from its sheath. He shallowly cut the officer the whole way around his neck and wiggled his fingers up underneath the skin.
Oh, what the
David
fuck?
pulled and pulled, with blood running between his fingers and under his nails.
If it's not already readily apparent, if this should not be your first, this should not be your first introduction into the series at all. You really should actually just watch episode 1 through 3 first before getting to here, to see what David really is made of. But whatever. Fucking hell. It's not already readily apparent. Kids, anybody can watch this. Just that if you don't want your child to see this, or if you're a child yourself and you don't want to get caught watching this content, then you should probably click off now or plug in some earbuds and watch it just don't. Basically what I'm trying to say is watch this, don't be a fucking pansy and click off. That's what I'm trying to say. I need the views.
He pulled until it began to slide up. With sickening scrunches and pops,
what the
all
fuck?
the skin of the man's head slid right off. The man appeared as just a red, bleeding skull with eyes now. He screamed with sheer agony, and it seemed never-ending. Pus and flesh chunks dripped to the floor with sickening squishing noises, and the man wailed until blood spewed violently out of his mouth with every shriek. To stop the man screaming, David wrapped the bloody skin around his mouth. David kept applying pressure until the man stopped struggling and fell lifeless to the floor. Then David decided that he had to do something to avenge the death of Pummey. He took the rifle and left the room. The atrocities committed by David that day are unspeakable. He stalked through the prison camp, killing all the people that he laid his eyes on. Any children he found, he would stab to death. With babies, he would sometimes grab them by their feet and swing them around, eventually bashing their heads against a rock and splattering shattered infant onto all nearby surfaces. Other times,
really funny.
He would throw them into the air and position his knife so that they would fall down straight onto it. Any unaccompanied women he found, he would rape. Any dead women he stumbled back across, he would rape again. And if he shot them with a clear enough hit, he would fuck the gaping, bleeding bullet hole, often covering his coffin pulpified brain matter in separated strings of human flesh. David massacred a total of 537 inmates that day, and he killed 44 GSF personnel. Then the GSF elite showed up. They arrived hoping to neutralize the threat, but what they found pleased them. David stood atop a tower, firing upon screaming innocent people, men, women, and children alike, shouting, "I devote my life to the state. I will kill all enemies of the global order, and I live to do the bidding of Eric Sturber." Retribution will find his enemies. The GSF elite knew that David was considered an enemy, but they didn't see why. He was even more fanatical about the global order than they were. David had even carved the daggers into his chest with the knife that he had stolen from a dead officer.
Why?
And he was waving a global order flag. Now, David may have appeared to be an extreme supporter of the global order, but he was truly plotting something. He plotted revenge for the loss of his love. He intended to ascend the ranks of the
Did they just not have
and
security
personally
cameras
assassinate
there?
Eric Sturber, for it was him who gave the initial order for the deaths of David and Pommy. The GSF elites who had found David took him in. They brought David with them to test his devotion to the global order. He was taken to an execution camp. The elites told David that he was the one who had to execute all of the dissidents.
How easy.
They were lined up, all 200 of them that were scheduled for execution that day.
Easy.
But they all had to face David. He mercilessly and coldly walked up the line, unloading one bullet into the head of each person he passed. That is until he reached the last man. David gave him an opportunity to say his last words. The man stared David dead in the eyes and said, "Fuck the global order. Death to Eric Sturber." David smacked him across the face and roared, "How dare you speak ill of our commander?" David threw the man to the ground and kicked his head against the chain-link fence behind the execution line. David kept kicking the man's head into the chain links as the people inside the camp watched in horror. The man screamed and begged for mercy, begged for a quick death. But David would not be so kind.
Oh, that's very funny.
David kicked the man to death, repeatedly smashing his head into a series of interlocked metal links. The pattern of the fence was imprinted in bloody webs on his face and neck, although it soon became hard to tell, as his entire face was obscured by obscene amounts of blood, as well as tears and mucus from the man's excessive crying.
My fucking god.
Eventually, the man's head exploded,
Of course it did.
sending blood splashing in all directions. Brain
Fucking
matter
hell.
flew out and clung to the bloody links in the fence. Skull fragments laid in the grass and stuck themselves into David's claws.
What the hell?
The man's ruptured eyes leaked down into the misshapen sludge that was once his head. David reached in and grabbed a handful of this disgusting sludge. He then threw it at the prisoner in the camp who was closest. It turned out that the prisoner who he had thrown the fluid at was the man's wife. She rushed David in fury, and he shot her in both of her knees. She fell to the ground,
No.
still sobbing.
No. Don't do it.
She couldn't walk.
Don't do
David
it.
strolled
No,
over to her,
no,
and as she
no.
futilely tried to get up, he held her
No.
down.
No.
He
No.
undressed her and raped
Wait,
her
wait,
with
no, no.
brutality
Oh my
and hate.
fucking god. Okay. So, what happened there was basically a bunch of no-no stuff. Just like Korvurrum went into depth about rape. I'm not gonna show that to you. Yeah. That's all there is to it, really.
Then pulled his rifle and shot her in the throat, watching as she choked to death on blood and shattered bone. Once she was dead, David walked back over to the like of executed corpses and severed 8 of the men's cocks. He returned to the woman and punched her lifeless face until her jaw cracked apart. Then he stuffed all of the bleeding cocks down into her throat. He then walked back to the GSF elites who were satisfied with his devotion to the state and his depravity. They wanted him to be a GSF officer. They tattooed the daggers onto his shoulder themselves, marking his membership to the GSF. But since David had been sent to a prison camp, he had had his citizenship of the global order revoked. He had to have that reinstated first. In order to complete his plan to assassinate Eric Sturber and avenge Pommy, he had to become a citizen once again. He found a reasonably priced lawyer in the city he was staying in for a week or two. David saw the name beside his door to Reed S. Goodman. He opened the door and walked inside. He couldn't see the man as his chair was turned around, but this man would help him to fight for citizenship. And eventually, David could continue his plan to slaughter Eric Sturmer. David walked across the office, an angel of death silently creeping through the law firm, and he sat down in the chair on the other side of the lawyer's desk. David said, "I need to fight to get citizenship so that I can become a GSF officer." The lawyer spun around, and with a devilish grin laid across a face that David knew so well, he said, "And I need to get paid." Old Villador stands.
Okay. I feel like the ending is okay. This new faction that I was preparing for, is, I could work with it. But what I can't work with is the amount of detail. Like, if, it's alright, but if you mention and don't go into detail at all about, like, raping, it's still not good, but it's postable. I don't have to edit that out. I'm gonna have to edit out. I don't know if you guys are gonna be able to hear this, or if you hear the very in-depth rap scene, or just or if I'll edit it out. I don't know. Well, I guess it's done now. Fucking hell. Well, I'm sorry if you guys if I didn't edit that out. I'm sorry you guys had to go through that. For the record, I don't condone any of that. That was Korvurrum's doing. Well, bye. New outro music shit.